You know that feeling, right? That almost magical moment when a deadline is breathing down your neck, the clock is ticking, and suddenly everything just, well, clicks. Your focus sharpens, ideas flow,
Yeah.
and you churn out work that's surprising, sometimes even shockingly good.
Yeah, the 11th hour says.
Exactly, the 11th hour phenomenon. And it brings this really weird mix of relief, maybe exhilaration because, you did it,
Right.
but also a hefty dose of anxiety and maybe self-reproach for waiting so long. It's almost like some hidden superpower activates. Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. We're calling this the deadline paradox, this common yet kind of perplexing thing where last-minute success feels incredibly real and effective even. But what's really going on there?
And that, I think, leads to a really central question for you, our listener. Is this actually a sustainable winning strategy? Or is it, a dangerous habit just waiting to sabotage you? What truly happens in our brains to create that intense clarity, that focus, right when the pressure hits? And while, yes, last-minute success can certainly feel real, it's also highly unstable. And as we'll uncover, it comes with significant hidden costs that often go completely unnoticed until maybe it's too late. So our mission in this deep dive is really to systematically deconstruct this paradox. We're going to explore it from psychological, neuroscientific, and behavioral angles, and hopefully by the end, provide you with healthier, more sustainable strategies to truly master your tasks and your time, rather than just, survive them deadline after deadline.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning then. Procrastination. Now, you probably have a sense of what procrastination is, but it's important to understand that not all delay is actually procrastination.
That's a key point.
Yeah, like if your internet crashes, you delay work, obviously, but you're not procrastinating, right? So what do you think procrastination truly is? Is it just being lazy? Or is there maybe more to it?
Well, psychologists actually have a very precise definition. Procrastination isn't just laziness, no. It's that irrational, voluntary choice to put off something you intend to do,
Yeah.
even when you know it's probably going to hurt you later.
Yeah.
That irrational bit is really key. You foresee worse consequences, yet you still delay.
Ah, okay.
So it's not just about poor time management. It's a deeper self-regulation failure. It's like a battle going on inside yourself.
Right. And here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Forget what you thought you knew about procrastination, because there's this critical, almost counterintuitive distinction. Active procrastination versus passive procrastination. One might actually empower you, while the other, well, it paralyzes you. We're about to show you which is which and why understanding this is crucial for your work.
Exactly. Let's break those down. So passive procrastination, that's the traditional harmful type we usually picture, right?
The bad kind.
The bad kind. It's driven by avoidance. Things like fear of failure, anxiety, maybe boredom, or just feeling completely overwhelmed by a task. When you're stuck in this mode, you typically feel paralyzed. It leads to increased stress, guilt, and generally poorer performance. In fact, most of those negative health outcomes we link to procrastination, like sleepless nights or chronic stress, they're tied directly to this passive avoidance.
Okay, that makes sense. So what's the other one? Active.
Now, active procrastination, that's a completely different piece. This is actually a conscious choice to work under pressure.
Conscious, really?
Yes, active procrastinators aren't feeling out of control. They intentionally delay because they genuinely believe they perform better with more focus, more efficiency when that deadline looms. Their motivation is what we call approach-oriented. They're seeking optimal results, not just avoiding bad feelings. They might even use that initial delay period for, say, information gathering, brainstorming, or just letting creative ideas kind of simmer.
Interesting. And whether it's active or passive, you mentioned there are common psychological drivers behind any type of delay, things we all wrestle with, I guess.
Absolutely.
Like perfectionism, that fear of not meeting impossibly high standards, which can lead to, analysis paralysis. You just can't start.
Right. Or fear and anxiety. Delaying becomes an emotion regulation strategy. You're trying to avoid the negative feelings associated with the task itself.
So it's not the task, it's the feeling about the task.
Often, yes. It's not the work you're avoiding, but the anxiety it brings up. And then there's often blind optimism.
I know that one.
Yeah, where you simply overestimate your ability to complete tasks quickly and efficiently. You think, I'll knock that out later, and push more pleasant activities ahead.
Guilty.
And finally, sometimes it's simple task aversion. The task itself is genuinely difficult or unpleasant or just lacks any real intrinsic reward for you.
So putting it all together, those surprisingly good results we sometimes get, the ones that reinforce the habit.
Right. What's truly insightful here is that those moments are almost exclusively found in active procrastination, or maybe as a desperate last-ditch rescue effort by a highly capable passive procrastinator who's finally pushed into action.
Okay.
But the key difference lies in what happens during that delay. Active procrastinators allow for a period of mental incubation, you could call it. Their subconscious can work on the problem. Passive procrastinators, though, they're actively avoiding and suppressing any thoughts about the task. That distinction is critical because one type of delay can actually be productive while the other is it's just avoidance.
Okay, we've talked about the psychology, the different types of delay, but for that true 11th hour magic, that sudden clarity, something profound must be shifting inside our heads, neurologically speaking. What's the neuroscience behind that?
Yeah, this is fascinating. Think of your brain like a constantly negotiating team. You've got your ancient, impulsive inner child as your limbic system. It always wants instant gratification.
The part that wants to check social media right now.
Exactly. It houses your amygdala, which screams avoidance when faced with something difficult or scary. Now, battling it out is your responsible adult in the room, your prefrontal cortex, or PFC. That's the planner, the impulse controller, the part focused on your long-term goals. Procrastination, really, at its root, is simply the PFC's failure to control that impulsive limbic system. The adult loses the argument, basically.
So when that deadline hits hard, is it truly like a forced reboot for our nervous system? And if it is, are there hidden costs to relying on that kind of extreme pressure all the time?
It absolutely can be like a forced reboot. When your brain perceives a deadline as an acute threat and it activates your primal stress response system, we call it the HPA axis. This system triggers the release of powerful stress hormones, primarily cortisol. Now, in the short term, this surge of cortisol, along with adrenaline and dopamine, acts as a potent focusing agent.
Okay.
It effectively forces your prefrontal cortex into this highly active, almost tunnel vision state. It's like channeling the full energy of a fight or flight response directly towards the cognitive task at hand, clearing out all the mental clutter.
That burst of focus sounds almost, I don't know, addictive maybe? But my gut tells me there has to be a limit. We can't just ride that cortisol wave forever, can we?
No, you absolutely can't. And that's the critical tipping point you're sensing. Excessive or prolonged cortisol secretion actually becomes toxic to your brain.
Toxic? How so?
Well, high levels of cortisol can start to damage the very PFC we rely on for good judgment. This can lead to impaired decision-making, scattered attention, a loss of impulse control.
Yeah.
And sound familiar?
Uh-oh.
It can even shrink your hippocampus, which is vital for memory, causing that frustrating brain fog and memory decline. This is precisely why relying on deadline-driven strategies is such a high-risk gamble. That last-minute clarity you feel, it isn't necessarily a superior mental state, it's actually a narrowing of cognitive function. Your brain effectively prunes irrelevant thoughts, creating deep tunnel vision to tackle the immediate threat.
So it helps focus, but limits broader thinking.
Exactly. It can be incredibly effective for clear, defined tasks. But it's often disastrous for complex, divergent thinking, the creative stuff, unless, and this is key, those creative seeds were already sown much earlier during that incubation period we talked about.
This brings us right to a key question about performance then. You've likely heard of the Yerkes-Dodson law, that inverted U-curve of performance versus pressure.
A classic.
But what's often missed, I think, is how incredibly fragile that peak performance zone is, especially for complex tasks. So how does this century-old psychological principle actually explain our deadline behavior?
It explains it perfectly, actually. The Yerkes-Dodson law basically shows that your performance level is directly related to your arousal or pressure level, forming that inverted U shape for you. On the curve's left side, you're in the low arousal zone. Performance is poor due to boredom or lack of focus. You just can't get started.
Okay.
As arousal increases, you move up the curve and reach the optimal arousal zone. That's the sweet spot at the peak, where your attention and efficiency are maximized. This is your zone of optimal performance.
The magic zone.
The supposed magic zone. But if arousal keeps climbing, maybe the deadline gets too close or something goes wrong, you tip over the edge into the high arousal zone on the right. Here, performance sharply declines due to anxiety, panic, cognitive dysfunction. You basically choke under the pressure.
Right. So you can picture the approach of a deadline as you being forcefully moved along this curve.
Exactly. A distant deadline puts you way over on the left, low arousal, prone to procrastination. As the deadline approaches, the pressure pushes you towards the middle, hopefully into that optimal arousal zone. the peak. That's where those last-minute miracles can happen.
Can't happen.
Can. But here's a core insight. While a little pressure can optimize you, constantly riding the deadline wave is like playing Russian roulette with your productivity. You're betting you'll hit that narrow Goldilocks zone of performance every single time. But one unexpected hiccup, maybe a technical glitch, or even just a moment of self-doubt,
And you crash.
and you're crashing hard, pushed over the peak. This compromises not just the quality of your work, but your well-being too. And this gamble gets even riskier with complex tasks.
How so?
Well, complex tasks generally require a calmer, lower stress environment, a lower point on that arousal curve compared to simple, repetitive tasks that can tolerate higher pressure. Relying on the last minute leaves almost zero room for error, especially when complexity is high.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, but let's dig into the quality of work produced sometimes, especially when it comes to creative insights. How do we make sense of the surprising quality that sometimes emerges in that final frantic sprint? What does this all mean for creativity specifically?
Ah, yes. This is where the incubation effect becomes really relevant. It's a well-studied phenomenon in creative problem solving. It's basically when people temporarily set aside a difficult problem, maybe they go for a walk, do the dishes, whatever, and then solutions or inspirations often suddenly emerge later. Think of Archimedes having his eureka moment in the bathtub, supposedly while relaxing.
That sounds almost mystical, though, like ideas just appear out of thin air. How does your brain actually do that? What's the science behind that incubation period? Is it just random?
No, it's not random magic at all. There are several really fascinating cognitive mechanisms at play. First, there's unconscious processing. Even when your conscious mind steps away, your subconscious keeps working on the problem in the background.
Like a background app running.
Sort of. It's reorganizing information, forming new non-traditional connections. This is linked to something called the Zeigarnik effect, that tendency for unfinished tasks to remain active in your mind, kind of nagging you, almost.
Okay, what else?
Second, there's forgetting fixation. Taking a break helps you forget the unproductive mental ruts, those dead ends you keep hitting. This allows for a fresh, more flexible perspective when you return to the task. You escape the box you were trapped in. And finally, spreading activation. During incubation, related concepts stay subtly active subconsciously. This makes it easier for your brain to connect new clues or knowledge that comes along, building novel associations and leading to that aha moment.
This really brings to mind the work of organizational psychologist Adam Grant. He talks about creative procrastination, specifically that quick to start, slow to finish model. It almost sounds like a deliberate strategy for smart people, not just accidental delay.
It absolutely can be. Grant's research does indeed show that some of the most creative thinkers are often quick to start, slow to finish. They engage with the problem early on, get the ball rolling, but then they consciously delay completing the task. They build in time for that crucial incubation period. Experiments have even shown that participants who moderately delayed their work actually produced results with, I think it was 28% higher creativity scores compared to those who rushed or delayed way too long.
Wow, 28% is significant.
It is. It turns out there's also an inverted U relationship for creativity and delay, just like with pressure. Moderate delay enhances it. No delay or excessive delay tends to inhibit it. You can see this historically too. Think of Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa that took him over a decade, on and off. Or Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. Apparently, the famous dream part was improvised or added very late, maybe drawing on ideas that had been incubating.
And didn't Aaron Sorkin say something like, you call it procrastinating, I call it thinking?
Exactly. That quote captures it perfectly. Even Steve Jobs was known for prioritizing making something different and better over just being the fastest to market. He let ideas cook. Now, here's a really crucial clarification. The creative breakthroughs that can result from this type of procrastination stem from the incubation that happens during the delay, not from the final frantic sprint itself.
Right, the panic doesn't create the idea.
Precisely. The quick-to-start phase is vital because it plants the seeds for that subconscious work to happen. Passive procrastinators, remember them? The ones who completely avoid the task from the beginning. They miss this crucial first step. Their delay period is empty. It's driven by avoidance, not productive incubation. So the quality isn't there.
Okay, so despite those occasional flashes of magic or creative genius that might come from active procrastination or incubation, the reality of chronic procrastination, especially the passive kind, is far less glamorous. What's the real long-term impact on your well-being and performance? I know I've certainly felt that overwhelming sense of dread creep in.
Oh, the damage is profound, and it's serious. Long-term studies consistently link chronic procrastination, the habitual kind, to significantly higher levels of stress, anxiety, and even depression. That temporary relief you get from delaying, it's quickly replaced by greater, more persistent cumulative stress as deadlines inevitably loom closer. This constant cycle really erodes self-confidence. It leads to intense guilt, self-doubt, feelings of helplessness, and ultimately it just lowers your overall life satisfaction. It's a truly insidious emotional tax you pay over time.
And does that emotional tax translate into physical problems too?
Absolutely. This long-term psychological stress definitely manifests physically. Research links chronic procrastination to increased health issues like insomnia, digestive problems, a weakened immune system meaning you catch more colds,
Oh, wow.
and even higher risks of serious conditions like cardiovascular disease and hypertension down the line. What's more, procrastinators also tend to delay beneficial health behaviors.
Like going to the doctor or exercising.
Exactly. Putting off checkups, skipping exercise, delaying healthy eating habits. This only exacerbates the negative physical impact. It really becomes a double whammy for your body.
Okay, and what about the work itself? That common belief, I work better under pressure? Is that just a myth then?
Largely, yes. Despite that widespread belief, large-scale studies consistently show that, on average, procrastinators generally have lower academic scores and poorer work quality overall. That belief, I work better under pressure, is often a cognitive fallacy. Or sometimes it's a form of psychological defense mechanism we call self-handicapping.
Self-handicapping, what's that?
It's where you subconsciously protect your fragile self-esteem. By procrastinating, you create an excuse for potential failure. If you don't do well, you can blame it on lack of effort. Oh, I just didn't have enough time, or I rushed it.
Instead of facing the possibility, it was due to a lack of ability.
Precisely. It's a way to avoid genuinely testing yourself and potentially confirming a fear about your competence. It feels safer to blame the clock.
So, what does this all mean then? It sounds like the most dangerous part of procrastination isn't just the delay itself, but this really vicious cycle it creates, almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy of misery.
That's a perfect way to put it. You delay because you feel anxious. That gives you temporary relief, which powerfully reinforces the idea in your brain. Avoidance equals relief. It's a learned behavior, quick fix. But the task doesn't magically disappear. The looming deadline eventually creates even greater anxiety, which, in a cruel twist, seems to confirm your initial belief that the task was terrible or too hard. This makes the urge to delay even stronger the next time you face a similar task. Each time you delay, you deepen this psychological trap. And that occasional, surprisingly good result
Becomes dangerous reinforcement.
exactly, it provides a convenient excuse, a rationalization for your next relapse into procrastination. It's a feedback loop from hell, really.
Okay, this is starting to sound a bit bleak, but since we know the root often lies in managing emotions, not just managing time, what are the most effective, healthier strategies for you, the listener, to actually break this cycle? We can't just wish it away, right?
No, definitely not. And there are some really effective strategies. One incredibly clever approach is John Kerry's structured procrastination.
Structured procrastination sounds like an oxymoron.
It does, but the core idea is to sort of cooperate with your tendency to procrastinate, rather than fighting it head-on all the time. Here's how it works. You place an incredibly important-looking, maybe urgent-sounding, but actually delayable flagship task at the very top of your to-do list.
Okay.
Now, to avoid this daunting flagship task, you will find yourself powerfully motivated to complete all the other, relatively less important, but still valuable tasks lower down on your list.
That's brilliant, like a psychological judo.
Exactly. You're redirecting your avoidance energy productively. You actually get a lot done around that big, scary task you're putting off.
I love that. Okay, so how else can you proactively manage your own pressure and arousal levels, short of waiting for sheer panic to kick in?
Well, a really practical one is setting intermediate deadlines. Break down those huge projects into smaller, manageable modules, each with its own mini deadline. This creates a sense of controlled urgency much earlier on, preventing that initial inertia and avoiding the massive last-minute panic.
Makes sense. Bite-sized pressure.
Right. Another great tactic, deceptively simple, is the 5-minute rule. Just commit to working on a daunting task for only 5 minutes. That's it, 5 minutes.
Only 5 minutes.
Yep. This drastically lowers the psychological barrier to starting. The thought of 5 minutes isn't overwhelming, and very often, once you've started, Inertia will carry you forward long past those initial 5 minutes. It's all about building that initial momentum.
I can see that working.
Yeah.
And what about fostering true creativity, building on what we learned about incubation rather than just, waiting for inspiration to strike when the clock's about to hit 0?
To really foster creativity proactively, embrace strategic breaks. Follow that quick to start, slow to finish principle we discussed. Engage with the problem first, then take conscious pauses for that subconscious processing to happen. It's not just goofing off, it's purposeful pausing.
Okay.
Also, practice task decomposition. Break down huge, vague, overwhelming tasks like write my thesis into concrete, manageable small steps, like find 5 key articles for chapter 1 or outline the introduction. This significantly reduces that initial fear and anxiety, making it much easier to just begin. Small steps feel achievable.
Makes sense. Less intimidating. Finally, what about addressing the real emotional core of procrastination itself? That guilt, that anxiety you mentioned keeps driving it.
2 really powerful strategies here, backed by research. First, cultivate self-compassion. This might sound soft, but Dr. Fuchsia Soroya's research is clear. Guilt and self-blame only worsen the negative emotions that drive procrastination in the first place.
So beating yourself up makes it worse.
Absolutely. Treating your own procrastination slip-ups with understanding and kindness, like you might treat a friend, actually helps calm your emotions and regain the ability to act constructively. It breaks the shame spiral.
Okay. Self-compassion. What's the second one?
Second, try actively transforming anxiety into excitement. Physiologically, anxiety and excitement are surprisingly similar. You get the racing heart, the sweaty palms, right? You can consciously, cognitively relabel this feeling. Instead of thinking, I'm nervous, tell yourself, I'm excited. This simple shift can change your mindset from perceiving the task as a threat to seeing it as a challenge, something to be embraced rather than avoided.
Wow. Reframing the physical feeling.
Exactly. Ultimately, the most effective strategies aren't just about better time planning, though that can help. They're really about managing your emotions and your motivation. They work by reducing the emotional barrier to starting tasks and cleverly redirecting that avoidance energy. Over time, this can actually change your fundamental emotional relationship with work itself, shifting it from dread towards proactive engagement.
So, to bring this all together then, that last-minute success that so many of us experience, it really is a complex, double-edged sword, isn't it?
It really is.
It's a fascinating product of your brain's primal responses to stress and arousal, and maybe even that creative incubation. It highlights our incredible adaptability as humans, but also our fragile breaking points. It's a testament, perhaps, to what we can do under duress, but maybe not what we should rely on doing all the time.
And that's exactly why relying on those last-minute sprints is so dangerous, so unsustainable in the long run. It's like relying on lightning for light.
Good analogy.
Yeah, it might illuminate the path spectacularly once in a while, but it's inherently unreliable, unpredictable, and pretty risky. Those surprisingly good results. They're often just exceptions that conveniently mask deeper, maladaptive patterns that are slowly chipping away at your mental and physical health. So the true path forward for you listening right now isn't really about becoming a better last-minute hero, constantly putting out fires you inadvertently set yourself. Instead, it's about developing the self-awareness and, crucially, the emotional regulation skills that make such heroic last-minute saves unnecessary in the first place. It's about building resilience and a sense of calm into your process.
So true mastery for you means learning to proactively manage pressure, maybe even use it strategically in small doses. It means nurturing creativity through those strategic pauses, that incubation, and ultimately building a work pattern based on sustainable engagement rather than that exhausting, demoralizing avoidance panic cycle.
Exactly.
By truly understanding these profound psychological and neural mechanisms we've talked about today, you really can transform from being, well, a slave to the deadline into the master of your time, your pressure, and ultimately yourself. So here's a final thought for you to take away. What single small step will you take this week, maybe using one of the strategies we discussed, to move from being a slave to the deadline towards becoming its master?